Once everything is done and you've taken all your pictures and you're happy with your catch of the day, it's time to go to the next stage, workflow. Now what is workflow? Workflow is the steps you take from capture to output. And workflow can depend from photographer to photographer and also from the type of photography that you do. But every effective workflow shares similar steps and techniques. It's important when you're starting out in photography to develop the habit of using an effective workflow. It will save you a lot of time, headaches and lost images. And the workflow I will be sharing here is the one that I use and will cover the basics every photographer can use. Now along that we will also go into post-processing, and I will actually take you with me to my computer and I will show you all the basic things of post-processing and how to make your images look really amazing. Starting with the camera, your workflow can already look different depending on the file format you're shooting in, JPEG or RAW. RAW format will be a little more complicated than if you're shooting in JPEG because the RAW images still require you to process them into a usable image before you can print or publish them. A good photo application is one of the key factors for a smooth workflow. Now there are free options such as RAW Therapy or Picasa, and while they do offer some decent tools, I highly recommend, if you want to take your photography at all seriously, to go for a paid application such as Lightroom, which costs €12 per month plus comes with Photoshop, or Capture One, which is a single price of $219. Applications like Lightroom and Capture One give you very smooth ways to transfer, organize, sort and export your images. But they also offer very powerful editing and post-processing tools to improve your images. They both have a 30-day free trial, so you have the chance to play around with them, compare and decide which one you prefer. To say which one is better requires a whole other lesson. But both are similar yet different and have their pros and cons. Now I would say Lightroom is, if you are just starting in post-processing, Lightroom has a better overview of everything, while Capture One seems a lot more clunky. However, Capture One applies a much better sharpening to your images. Keeping your photos well organized will save you a lot of pain in the ass. If you use applications such as Lightroom or Capture One, you will have a whole set of options to help you. They allow you to easily create structured folders, and a good structure, for example, would look as follow. So first you got the root folder called Photos, then we have these subfolders for each year, then we got another subfolders for each event or destination. If you're not using a photo application, and you really should though, but if you're not, you can use the same structure of folders on your desktop. Next step will be the actual post-processing of your images. And this is not a step to miss if you are shooting in RAW, since your camera will not have put the images yet through any post-processing at all like it does with JPEGs. Alright, so why do you come and sit here next to me? Then I can show you the basics of post-processing. Alright, so here we are in Lightroom. Now, I'm only going to show Lightroom and a Capture One as well, and the reason for that is because if you know how to work with these tools here, you have the same ones in Capture One, but they're just located differently. Of course, there are also some other tools, but if you get these basic settings down, you will also be able to work with Capture One. So, we're gonna go and turn this image of this beautiful flower here into a really amazing looking photo, because at the moment this looks kind of gray. So we're gonna go and bring this more to life. And I'm gonna go over the process of how I edit photos. So let's go and start. So the first thing I do is I go to Lens Corrections, and I click on Enable Profile Corrections. Now it's not really doing something here right now, but what it does is it resolves any lens distortions. So be sure to always click on this. And the next thing I do is, let me go and zoom in. For that, I click on Remove Chromatic Aberration, and you can see here the blue line. And when you click on it, it will actually go and remove that blue line, as you can see. Let me just enable that again, and then there you go. And this is sort of a color correction, so yeah, be sure to also click on this always. And then we move on to the detail. Let's go and zoom in here. Let's also zoom in here, because this is the point where I focused on. And so because it's a raw file, there is no sharpening applied on it yet, so we have to go and do that. So let's go and do about 85. 85, yes. You have to see for your picture, because 85 might be too much. Just see that it's not getting too much broken, that there's not too much noise appearing, but it's still okay. And then when you go on masking and you click on the Alt and then the left mouse button, you get this. And where the black is, there the sharpening is not applied on, and where the white is, there it is. So let's go and put it like this. That's good. And let's also put some noise reduction on, about 10. That's good. All right. Now let's go into the basic, and here is where we're gonna go and really play and bring this photo more to life. My photo is kind of underexposed, as you can see, so I'm gonna go and bring the exposure more up. I'm gonna add some clarity, and I'm gonna bring the highlights a bit down to get some more details visible on the leaves, the shadows, the white's a bit up, the black's a bit down, and the vibrance. Here you can see the picture coming a lot more to life, and a little bit of saturation about this. That looks good. Now let's play with the tone curve. A little bit, the lights. Leave that. Bit of the shadows, something like that. That looks good. Okay. And here in color, you can actually go and add more saturation to one specific color instead of the whole picture. So let's go and add some more saturation on the green, about this, and also on the orange, about that. That looks good. Okay, let's go to camera calibration. And let's put a bit more of a kind of a mood in the photo. So let's add some more tint to the shadows. That's taking a bit. Yeah, there we go. That looks good. Also, let's add a punch of the green. Okay, that looks great. Now with the adjustment brush here, this is actually where you can go and do some really cool adjustments on one specific part. So let's go and zoom in here, and let's make some adjustments on the inside here of the flower. And by clicking on this here, you can actually see where you're drawing. Let's color that in. I'm not completely gonna color it in, just on this part. I'm gonna leave this here without any coloring. And if you accidentally not colored out where you didn't, by clicking on the Alt button, you get your eraser and you can easily go and erase all that. So about that, and I kind of did some there. All right, let's see. Okay, and let's go and add a bit more clarity on there. You can see the difference, and maybe a bit of the temperature, and that's about it. Now here you can actually, on this button, you can click on it and you can see the before and the after. Now it's not a enormous difference, but when you're editing, that's kind of the point, that you just bring like these small kind of adjustments and they kind of create the picture. So This is a very kind of small adjustment, but it does something. Another thing that I do with a lot of photos is I take the graduated filter and I put one here and also one on the top, and I put the exposure a bit down. Now what this does is it will create more of a dramatic kind of photo, and it also brings all the attention to the flower. So let's bring that down too, and I'll do a bit more here and a little bit less. No, okay, I think that's actually okay. And let's see the difference. There we go. This looks oh yeah, maybe because it looks a bit to the a bit kind of unstraight. So let's put it a bit more straighter. About that. That looks good. There we go. Now you can see the before and the after, and this is a enormous of a difference. And I just show you now the very basics of editing and the possibilities that you have by just making some kind of small adjustments here. You can already improve your photos so much. So from coming from this to this. But I have to say, if you got a raw format, if you have a raw file, you really have to go and edit it. Otherwise you will have a very gray photo. But when you do, you can create it into something as this. After completing your edits, the next step is of course to go and export your images either for printing or web use. Once you're done with editing your photo, you of course want to go and export it to a JPEG. And the way to do this is you go to File and you click on Export. Now in here, be sure to have the image format on JPEG and the color space on sRGB, and the quality, have it on 100. The resolution you can just leave on 300, and then you can go and click on Export, and there you go. Now if you intend to use this image for your website, then you will have to decrease your file size, otherwise it's gonna go and slow down your website a lot. And the best setting for that is the following. So the quality you put to 65 and click on Resize to Fit, and have the width on 1180 and the height on 880, and the resolution on 72. And I would also put the output sharpening on and have it on screen and amount height. And this will give you a good balance of having a small file size while having still a sharp photo. Now when printing your image, depending on the printing company, you either have to select the image format to a TIFF and have it on Adobe RGB, have the resolution on 300, and you might apply the output sharpening. You might click on it and you can choose between matte or glossy. But if they could also ask for just a JPEG, and then you just select the JPEG, of course, have the color space on sRGB, quality 100, and you could also apply some output sharpening on it. Last but definitely not least, and a step you should never ever forget, make backups. I could tell you countless of heartbreaking stories from people who never made backups and lost everything. Your hard drive will fail at some point, and when it does, all your images will be lost. Creating backups doesn't take too much extra time, and an external hard drive doesn't cost that much. At least not when you consider the amount of trouble and grief they prevent. I recommend you to buy 2 external hard drives of 2 TB or 4. This means you will have a total of 3 places where your files are stored. Take note of what I mentioned earlier. Hard drives will fail. The best option is to make a note of when you first used a hard drive and replace it after 3 years. This will minimize the risk of running into the not so pleasant scenario when your hard drive tells you it can't read your files anymore or just doesn't do anything at all. An extra security that I can highly recommend you to do as well is to keep one of your external hard drives somewhere else. Now, I keep those two external hard drives here safe in my car, and I have at my home two other external hard drives with the same copies on. Now, if someone will come and break into my house and steal those, then at least I have all those files still safe here in my car. Along with that, I would also recommend you to store your finished JPEG files onto a cloud storage application such as Google Drive, Dropbox or iDrive. They all do pretty much the same. Now, I personally use Google Drive. It has 15 gigabyte of free storage, and for a subscription of €199, you will have 100 gigabyte, where you can literally store hundreds of images on. Over time, you will develop a more involved workflow that suits your situation and your preferences more. But don't miss out a good workflow. It's the other half that makes for a good photographer.